Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you. We'll be starting in the next 5 minutes. Thank you. Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. We're about to start in the next couple of minutes. Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to each and every one of you this afternoon. I'm going to start by running through a few of the slides that some of you may have seen, and then we'll take great pleasure in introducing our speaker for today. So, for any of you interested in partnering with White Selection, we're always open to co-creating and collaborating with our clients. So if there's any of you out there who'd like to partner with us with our Global Thought Leader webinars that we're hosting, whether it's for brand association, for amplifying your visibility, or generating quality business leads, do reach out and connect with us. We'd like to acknowledge our strategic partners, our website partner, influencer site, social media partner, 4P Solutions, The Word Jockey, our content partner, and Kata 108, our content repurposing partner. It'd be a great pleasure to connect with each one of you on LinkedIn, so do take a moment to connect with me on LinkedIn and share that you were on this webinar. I always like to stay connected with like-minded, like-hearted individuals like yourself who have a high appreciation of learning and development. Our webinar is starting shortly. We encourage you to use Google Chrome, as that's the most stable browser to enjoy the webinars we're hosting for you. Do keep your mobiles on silent. That way you can enjoy the benefits of the value, the content that's going to be provided by our speaker today. Do keep a paper and pen, maybe colored pens, thinking of the concept of today, and also a glass of water just to keep hydrated. Exciting news is our next webinar, in fact, a virtual masterclass of 90 minutes is this Saturday, 20th of June, with globally renowned Jack Canfield, author of The Chicken Soup for the Soul, Success Principles, and the #1 CEO coach. This is our series for June. Thank you. On behalf of Right Selection, we are a father and son family business, been in the Gulf and the Indian subcontinent for over 25 years, partnering with organizations and individuals like yourself who have a passion for continuous learning and development. Our speaker for today, Chris Griffiths, is a world-renowned expert in innovation and mind mapping, a tech entrepreneur who sold his first company at the age of 26. He's the founder of Open Genius and the company behind the productivity software Iowa, which is going to be soon launched here in India and the Gulf region, and previously iMindMap, which was used by over 2 million people. He's a best-selling author on creativity and innovation skills, with his book being sold and translated into over 15 languages. His latest book, The Creative Thinking Handbook, received much commendation, and his previous title, Grasp, The Solution, reached #2 on the Amazon best-selling list. There's a humorous story which may come up on Chris's time today of why it reached only #2 and was not #1 that particular year. Chris has worked with a number of organizations globally, including governments, top 100 organizations, top 500 Fortune companies, and he's previously coached the royal families and also facilitated brainstorming sessions for the Petra Nobel Conference. Please join me in giving a warm round of applause from the comfort of your home to Chris Griffiths. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Gotham, it's an absolute pleasure to be here with you and everyone. Gotham, Right Selection were the first organization to ever invite me to talk in the Middle East. You were also the first organization to ever invite me to talk in India. So absolutely delighted to be doing this webinar with you and everyone that's with us this morning. And just to see such big names that you're inviting on here. So yeah, it's a privilege to be invited. And I hope that over the next hour that we can seriously inspire you to think differently and think creatively. We're in a really strange time. We've never known a time like this in our generation. Now more than ever, we need to be creative, we need to be innovative, and we need to have the tools to do that. Innovation is everything at the moment. Information is cheap. We can find out what we need to know when we need to know it. We have the internet. So there's so many things we can do now, and there's so many opportunities that we need to explore. So really excited to be doing this. I'm going to share my screen with everyone now. So just 2 seconds. Let me do that. Okay. Right. Okay. What you can see there is it's going to be a slightly different presentation. We're not using your typical PowerPoint or Prezi. We're actually going to be using our own tool, which is called AOA. I'll zoom in on that. Now, AOA is a very unique tool. Very proud of what the team has produced. It's a tool that allows you to think and plan and present in a dynamic way and to collaborate with others all in a single place so that you can get really meaningful work done at speed. The good news is for everyone, it's free. It has a completely free version. So while I'm using AOA during this presentation to show you some real world examples of what you can do to improve your creativity, please know that you can try all of this after this session. And even better news, we've agreed with Gotham and the Right Selection team that we'll make some very attractive offers available to everyone that's watching this webinar if you want to go for the full paid version of AOA. But you can do 95% of what I'm showing you today with the free version anyway, so you'll be able to get started straight away. Now, I'm doing something that you should never do when you're doing a presentation. I'm actually using a beta version of AOA. Obviously, being the CEO of AOA, I always want to show off all the things that AOA has, even if they're not available to the public. So there are a few things that I'll be doing that are not available in the current version that you might start to play with, but it's all coming very soon. But if anything goes wrong, that's going to be my excuse. It's the beta version of the product. Let me have a look at this. Right, I'm going to start with this slide. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time. Hopefully you can see it. It's Henry Ford. Thinking is the hardest work there is, which is probably why so few of us engage in it. I mean, just think about that. Thinking is the hardest work there is. Does that make any sense? We all know how to think. How can it be hard work? Well, it's a lot harder to do it right and to give yourself the best chance of success depending on what you're trying to do. And innovation definitely requires process and thought and knowledge. I mean, let me pose a question to you, and obviously just answer this in your mind. You don't need to add it to the chat, but how many of you agree that knowledge is power? Well, I don't. Knowledge is useful, but in today's society, knowledge is no longer power. And when I ask that to, let's say, live audiences, people will say, yep, totally agree with you. It's the use of knowledge that's power, Chris. Well, yes and no, that is correct, but it's still not what really can make the biggest impact. So what's really important isn't that knowledge is power or that the use of knowledge gives you power. What's really important is the creation of new knowledge. And that comes from innovation. It comes from creativity. That's what causes change. That's what causes disruption. So that is really the focus of what I'm going to be talking about in the next 30 minutes. How can we do that better? How can we overcome our challenges? How can we come up with better ideas? How can we smooth the whole process? And what have we been doing wrong? I mean, ultimately, you have to ask a question of yourself. Do you really know how to be creative? When you were young and going through school and university, how many hours did you actually spend learning how to create, learning how to learn, learning how to innovate? And then you can compare that to how many hours you might have spent learning mathematics or learning a language. There is no comparison. So we haven't been taught how to be creative. Study after study shows that creativity diminishes with age. And A lot of that is because of all of the beliefs and barriers that we surround ourselves with. So we need to figure out how we can change that. We need to think about our thinking. I mean, it's called metacognition, putting a strategy behind thinking. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we progress. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. This is from the World Economic Forum, and this was before the coronavirus was even known to the world. What they said was that by 2020, the most in-demand workspace skills will be creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, and cognitive flexibility. This isn't me saying it. This is the leading organization that works with thousands of executives across the world, trying to assess what are the most important skill sets that we need to be successful as organizations and individuals. And these are the areas that are constantly brought up. I was looking at their new survey of executives. All of these are still in the top 10, if not the top 5. So just think about how much time that you spend investing in yourself so that you can be highly creative, that you can be much more objective and critical in your thinking, that you can use strategies to problem solve. And cognitive flexibility is so important. Cognitive flexibility is the ability to stay balanced and see things without cognitive bias. And I'll touch on that. It's all of the thinking errors that we have that make us make the wrong decisions. Now, when we created AOA, we were trying to create an app that actually did everything to help with these skills. AOA helps people to be more creative because you can map out your ideas. It helps you to think objectively and solve problems by giving you an objective view. And it's cognitively flexible because it allows people to visualize their thoughts, ideas, and actions in so many different ways. And I'll be showing you that throughout the webinar. Let me over. Yeah, let's close that one down. Okay. So we're going to be talking about working from home, and it's a tough time. All of us, especially in India and in the UK, we've had some of the most rigid lockdowns of nations across the world. I know that a lot of India is still highly locked down. So working from home is something that has been sprung upon us in a way that we never expected. Coronavirus has changed everything. But actually, if you ignore the virus, it's accelerated something that was coming anyway. Working from home is here to stay. It changes the way we work. It does so for the better if we know how to do it properly. And it's something that we shouldn't be afraid of. So we need to see this as an opportunity to accelerate what was also necessary. Yes, there are cons as well as the pros, and we'll touch on some of these today. But essentially, from our perspective, I think it, in the long term, will help organizations get away from that sort of rigid control and the necessity of always being in an office. Right, we're going to do a poll. Gotham, if we could bring up the first poll, where do you get your best ideas, please?
I've shared the poll. Where do you get your best ideas? In a boardroom, in a meeting, on a video chat, somewhere else? If you could click on one of those answers, that would be great. I'll just wait a few seconds whilst they're replying. Amazing to see the highest responses somewhere else, which would be curious to type in the chat, where is that somewhere else? So it's boardroom is showing as 8%, meeting 3%, video chat 3%, and surprise, surprise, somewhere else is 86%. I'll just share those poll results now.
Thanks.
They're on the screen. So 80% is somewhere else.
80%, 86%, 80%, anything over 80% somewhere else. So it sounds like we've got an audience that I'm not really going to need to say much to it. But we all seem to know that that is the case. We don't get our best ideas when we're in an office, and especially when we're in a boardroom or a meeting room. And this is a really positive thing. It opens up so many opportunities for us working from home. But there are negatives to working from home. And, we have to think about the impact that it can have on why it can kill creativity. I'll give you an example. Let me bring up a link here, an image. I'll bring it there. One of the first things I noticed when lockdown got enforced is the almost incredible desire to fill up calendars, to make it look like that even though you're working from home, you're busy. And this is a very dangerous situation to be in, because it's taking away a lot of the opportunity that you have to actually be generative in your thinking. If you're always busy, you're always going to be a reactive thinker. And what we've seen with a lot of organizations is that people feel slightly guilty. They're worried that people may consider they're not being sort of active enough. So they're constantly filling up their electronic diaries with meetings, and unnecessarily so. And this is a dangerous position to be in, because it leads to many thinking errors that prevent you from being as creative as you possibly can. Let me go back to the map. So working from home can be massively beneficial as long as you take control. It's like anything else. You need process to be put behind an organization to make sure that it works in the most effective way, especially now that the sort of dynamics of how we all work together has changed. But from my perspective, I see this as a very positive thing. Working from home just has brought so many new opportunities. It gives us the ability to actually use some of our most powerful creative skills in a way. So I'll show you. This is an example of where we get our best ideas. I mean, I love the poll. Very few people. I did get worried when the poll started, because I saw in the boardroom was actually at the highest point at one point. But clearly, people do not do their best ideation when they're in an office. There's too many distractions. It's too busy. Relaxing is when you get your best ideas, and the reason for that is the greatest skill we've got in terms of creativity is the ability to use our imagination. We can only use our imagination when we allow ourselves time to actually daydream, to allow the mind to wander. And I think this is something that we now have the ability to do. I mean, do you do your best thinking when you're in a business suit or when you're in your pajamas? Do you do your best thinking when you're in a hectic office environment, or when you're in nature and, again, allowing your mind to wander? So all of these things are now at our disposal if we give ourselves the time to do so. So you've got to feel comfortable doing that, and it's so important. Let me just bring up another mind map here. It gives you time to do things that you might not otherwise have time to do. What I've done here, this is The Art of the Start by Guy Kawasaki. I'm sure many of you have read some of his books. This book is really powerful. This map was actually created by one of our team, Rachel here. We've shared it between 5 of us. And working from home, it allows you time to actually have more dots to join. So one of the difficulties with home working and creativity is that creativity relies on having dots to join. The more dots you have, the more random interactions you have with others, the more dots that start getting connected in a different way. So you have to look at how you can recreate that. So giving yourself more time to read and explore new concepts and opportunities is important. But I just wanted to show this map because this is just an example. I think I've got another one as well to show you later on. But this is an example of if you're watching a webinar or if you're reading a book or you're watching a YouTube video and you want to capture some of the key points from the material that you're listening to or reading, and then you want to do something with them afterwards, it's a great way of doing it. So, you know, if we were to look at some of the concepts here, actually, let me put autofocus on. Okay, it'll be easier. So you can see what Rachel has done here is she's captured the main fundamentals of what's in Guy's material. Let's have a look at the art of pitching, see if I'm doing the right job. Set the stage, let one person do the talking. I guess that's me. Explain yourself in the 6th minute. I don't know whether I did that. So what? Elaborate on responses. Well, hopefully I can do that when you ask me some questions. But I just wanted to give an example of how you can use AOA, mind mapping, pen and paper to do this, to capture ideas, create more dots to join. If all you do is read lots of books, you'll forget the majority of what you've read within 24 hours. So it's such a shame. Mapping each chapter, which has been done here, allows you to actually reread that material in just a matter of minutes. That gets absorbed. It's much more powerful and you can do something with it. Just thought I'd share that one with you. So let me jump back to where we were. Okay. Right, so we're back here. Now, I talk about daydreaming a lot, and being a tech entrepreneur, one of my key goals when I set out on my journey with Open Genius was to create technology that allowed people to capture their daydreams and their ideas. It's putting a structure to something that is unstructured, but allowing it to flow freely. And it's really important. This isn't just Chris Griffiths telling you this. Let me bring up some science behind it. Here we have one. This was an article that was in the New Scientist magazine. It was really interesting article from my perspective, because you can see the front cover even looks like sort of a visual map that we use as one of the core visualizations in our software tools. But the heading was Vacant Mind, Busy Brain. And what scientists were trying to understand was, why do we like to daydream? When we relax and we daydream, is it because the mind shuts down and that's why we feel so highly energized after we've done the daydreaming? And what they found was completely different. They found that when people daydream, the mind goes into overdrive. They were using functional MRI scanners. Areas of the brain just fired up. They called it the default network. It was areas of the brain to do with memory, even to do with executive function. So your more sort of decision-making areas of the brain would just fire up in a way that they didn't expect. So actually, when you allow your mind to be vacant and wander, that's when it's at its busiest. So you need tools that actually help you do that. And that was one of the overriding goals that we had in terms of creating any technology products to help people think much better. Okay, let me get back to this map. Right. Close that one down. Now, one of the things that has probably cropped up for you, working from home especially, is you're now using tools that you've never used before. I mean, here is an example of lots of different sort of task management tools, to-do list tools, note-taking tools. I mean, there are so many now. I'm sure you, like many people are having to adapt the way that you work. But just think about something. This is really the first time in human history that we as a race have used technology in the way that we have. We do a lot of our thinking using the box that's in front of us. You have to understand that the software that we use will impact on the way that we think. So if you're using the wrong tools, then you will be doing yourself a disservice and probably get the wrong results. It's not going to help you. And again, we're all so busy, we don't really stop to think about this. So this is why I wanted to talk about task management software and productivity software. But what I'd like to do first is just ask you through another poll, do you want to do things quicker, or do you want to do the right things? So Gotham, if we could bring up this second poll, that would be fantastic. Do you want to do things quicker or do the right things?
Yep, the poll is up. And do you want to do the right thing, do the things quicker or do the right things? %, people are saying, I want to do the right things. And 3% are saying, I'd like to do things quicker.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone. It's a bit of a trick question because actually we all want to do things quicker and we all want to do the right things. But clearly, everyone understands that doing the right things is what's the most important. Unfortunately, most technology tools don't actually understand that way of thinking. So they follow a broken philosophy. Let me look at it another way. If I was to say to you, if I'd asked you in the poll, do you want to do things quicker? Then yes or no, we know the answer would have been yes. But the problem there is, even if I help you do things quicker, if they're the wrong things to do, it doesn't help you. Another question that a lot of technology companies try to answer is, can I help? Would you like to get more done in less time? So this is something that they try and solve, helping people get things done in less time. But again, it's the wrong question to ask, because if you're doing the wrong things and you get them done in less time, you're still not getting anywhere. It's a completely broken philosophy. I think Bill Gates gets this across really well. And, when you get a chance after this webinar, just Google the video that I'm about to talk about. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere on the internet. It's called "Busy is the New Stupid," and it's Bill Gates and Warren Buffett just discussing why they've been successful, and both of them make the clear point. And if you've read any of their books, you'll know that giving themselves thinking time and turning off that busy switch is one of the greatest reasons for their success. So I want you all to think about that, because all of us have that busy switch turned on nearly all the time. From the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, many of us just have that busy switch on all the time, and you just have to turn it off. And you have to have tools and strategies and processes that help you to turn that off. And busy is the new stupid. We feel that if we are the one being seen to be being busy, we are the superhero in the organization. But the real heroes in an organization are the ones that help the organization change for the better. And I think that's what we're all striving to achieve. So sometimes you need to slow down to speed up. Again, it's one of the reasons why we created AOA. It was to allow people to not only manage their actions, but first and foremost, to make sure they're doing the right things. So they can map out their ideas first, before they even think of turning them into action. Here's another key point that I want to get across. This is an IDC document. Let me zoom in on this for you. And I came across this quite recently, actually. And IDC, one of the largest sort of analyst companies in the world, produced this document, what's an intelligent digital workspace. But what really stood out to me, and I'm sure you're all going through this at the moment, is that we need to use so many software applications just to get something done. So in this report, and this report, of course, was before coronavirus, so no doubt things are much worse now. The average worker had to use 7.6 software applications just to accomplish their day-to-day work activities. I mean, that's crazy. Why this matters? Workers need to access so many applications and content types to get their jobs done. There is a lot of context switching, which hinders productivity and degrades workers' experience. So you end up with a lot of respondents in this survey saying that they have challenges that they shouldn't have when they're trying to accomplish their day-to-day work activities. So, 55% of them struggle to find the documents that they need when they need to know it. It's not surprising. You've got email clients, you've got task management tools, you might have ideation tools, you'll have documents. Information is just spread out everywhere. And yes, you can try and integrate 5 or 6 different things together, but gosh, unless you're a real techie, it doesn't work, because these things are like duct tape integrations. They just break all the time and they don't work. Let's look at some of the other findings here. 57% of them found the challenge was switching between applications wasted time, and 57%, just finding the data that they needed was difficult. So when we set out on our AOA journey, we decided to try and solve that problem. If we could cut that number of applications down considerably, then we're helping people in a way that otherwise they can't. And I would hope that the presentation that I'm giving now kind of shows you an example of this. And I'll show you the whole mind map at the end of this. But in this one tool, in AOA, I've mapped out what I was going to say in this presentation. I've created the presentation. I've got documents, links, other maps and thinking tools, all linked to this one tool. I can add things as we're talking in this presentation. I can add a new concept if I decide I want to talk about something else. So this is all about keeping information in context. And I'll show you a little bit more about that later on. I'm concerned with time. I get too excited with this, and maybe I go on too long about a few things. But let's have a look at the other side of AOA, because I'm showing you mind mapping and presentation. I just want to quickly show you how you can actually get things done, but in a very visual way. So if I open up, we call these task boards. We've got idea boards and we've got task boards. This is a live task board that we use for our Open Genius Innovation Network sort of board communications. This is one view. This view is, we call it our Canvas view. It's a really nice way to work if you just like working in groups. You can move ideas and concepts around. You can create new concepts, new tasks. You can just add them in very quickly. But a key point here is that people like to see information in different ways. So perhaps this doesn't appeal to your style of thinking. Well, that's absolutely fine. Now, I might love this, but the individuals that are on this task board with me might want to see this information in a way that they like. And we've worked really hard to allow this to happen. So if I was maybe a little bit more linear, then maybe I want to see my tasks and actions in more of a Kanban style. So it's much more linear, but it's much more structured, and some people like that. Perhaps I want to see it more as a timeline, sort of a Gantt view. Now, I know on this task board we haven't set many start and end dates, so there's not many tasks that will show up in the Gantt timeline. But if this is a way that you want it to work, then you can do so. If I just wanted to see what's urgent or very urgent, I can have a look at the same project, but in a sort of a normal urgency, urgent and very urgent way. So it's all about giving people the ability to engage with their work the way they want to. Let me just jump back to the mind map. And also, as you can see what I'm doing here, AOA keeps all information in context. Everything links to everything. I'm not having to jump out to PowerPoint. I'm not having to jump out to a task management tool. I'm not having to jump out to a document tool. It's all here in one place. It just saves so much time. And look, I know I'm a bit biased because I'm the CEO of AOA, but honestly, we are trying to solve a problem that no one has solved, and that's helping people be far more effective and getting meaningful work done rather than just managing tasks quicker, which doesn't help anyone. One of the things I said to Gotham I would like to talk about is just brainstorming. I mean, everyone thinks they know how to brainstorm. The reason I wrote most of my books was because people don't know how to brainstorm. I mean, as Gotham alluded, I've worked with organizations all over the world, from royal families to Nobel laureates, to individuals, to school children. And a lot of people just don't understand what it means to brainstorm with people. It doesn't matter whether you're working from home or whether you're working in an office. So I thought what I do today is maybe share some of the examples of how you could be more effective, and of course, how not to brainstorm remotely. So let me bring that up. First of all, this is what brainstorming is to a lot of people, especially now working remotely. So it doesn't matter what sort of video conferencing tool you're using, but a lot of brainstorming is done in this situation. This is not brainstorming. Everyone, please understand that when you're in this situation, it doesn't matter whether it's face-to-face across a boardroom table or whether it's on a video chat. You are not brainstorming here. Brainstorming has to go through various stages. Ideation is one of the most important stages. Actually defining what you're trying to solve is the most important stage of all. This stage here, where you are with a large group of individuals, is more of an analysis phase. It's not a brainstorming phase, and it puts everyone in this situation in the wrong state of mind. You're in a reactive state of mind. If this lady in the middle was to throw out an idea, she thinks she's brainstorming. Everyone else in this room thinks they're brainstorming. So she throws out an idea. Everyone else in this room now stops thinking because their brain goes into a mode where it can only think of three things. It's become highly analytical. Those three things are: do I agree with what she is saying? And what information can I add to back it up? Do I disagree with what she's saying? Or am I not listening and I don't actually care? I'm just online anyway. But this is not brainstorming. So what should you do when you're brainstorming with your team? This is what you should, let me close that window. Okay, this is what you should do. This is a really, really common sense approach to how you should brainstorm. Let me hide that at the bottom, sorry. And it seems so obvious, but sometimes common sense just isn't common. So if you're trying to overcome any sort of challenge or brainstorm new ideas, the first thing you have to do is make sure that you get everyone that's involved to brainstorm it individually. If they don't do it individually first, it's not true brainstorming. Alex Osborne, who's the father of modern day brainstorming, he produced a lot of research that showed that brainstorming in groups was more powerful than brainstorming individually alone. A lot of that was disproven. It's actually a combination of things that you need. You need to think individually first so that your ideas are not influenced by anyone else. As soon as you come together in a group, you can't help but to be influenced by what somebody is saying. If I say elephant, everyone on this webinar is thinking about an elephant in one way or another. You can't help but to be reactive to an external influence. So whenever you're brainstorming something important, make sure your team does it individually first. Then go into small groups and then go into a large group. And when you're into a large group, at that stage, you're actually being far more analytical than you are brainstorming. And a key here, and something I'd really like to get across, is brain sprinting is far more effective than brainstorming. What I mean by this, and you answered this question beautifully earlier on in this webinar, is that so many people try and brainstorm in sessions. So maybe a 3-hour session, a 6-hour session, a week session, a strategy day, a strategy weekend. That's very dangerous, because we all know we do our most creative thinking when we're not in that sort of environment. We all agreed, well, 86% of us agreed with that at the beginning, that you need time to incubate ideas for them to actually start to create new and meaningful concepts. So whenever you're trying to brainstorm, if you're up against something, then what you need to do is try and break it down into as many small sessions as possible and create as many breaks. I mean, ideally, you don't want to have a session more than 30 minutes when you're working with individuals. 30-minute sprint, break away, let everyone think about it, ideally sleep on it, and take it from there. I know when the Bank of India was setting up its operations in the UK, they brought their senior executive team from all over Europe to the UK, and they asked us to get involved to help them to become more innovative, brainstorm how they can do things effectively in the UK in a different way, different market. And this is exactly what we did with them, as we took them through very small brain sprints so that they had time to think about things afterwards. So this is important whether you're working from home or whether you're in an office, but actually more so now working from home, because I'm sure you've all found that video conferencing can be quite draining. You're not just worrying about communication, you're worrying about the internet dropping and the technology. So it is very important that you try and keep things as concise as possible with brain sprinting. And ultimately, it's all about making better decisions. We are decision-making machines. From the moment we get up to the moment we go to sleep, we make decisions. Some are bigger than others. If we need to make larger decisions, we need to have strategy and process behind it. Gotham made a very good point. When I was speaking with him yesterday, he said, well, you know, a lot of us are not just reviewing what we're doing in our sort of work life, we're reviewing what we're doing in our personal life. And he asked if I could share with everyone how could AOA actually help us in the situation that we're in. You know, we're locked down. We haven't been out for potentially up to 12 weeks. So how can I use this time to organize my life? So I created this example. Let me open this this mind map for you. And again, AOA has a free version. You can use this for free, but you can use it on, you can use pen and paper if you didn't want to use technology. But you should do this because it will allow you to see things in a very objective way. You should have a mind map of your personal goals where you talk about what you want to do with your health, what do you want to do about your career and your wealth, people that are important to you, your family, your friends, your colleagues, and your own personal growth. You know, what do you want to do? And then you can start mapping it out. Health, what do you want to do now? So let's say lose weight. My target is to lose 10 pounds. When am I going to do it? Never. It's probably the best thing for me. How am I going to do it? Diet. Exercise. What exercise am I going to do? Run up steps. So you can just continue to build, and it's amazing. You can have a lot of fun with this, just building up your own personal goals and objectives for what you can do during lockdown. And I haven't got time to show you now, but you could turn all of these into tasks and task boards that you could then actually monitor how you're doing. Let's jump back to where we were. And then when it comes to work in terms of making better decisions. I think, well, actually, Gotham, let's go to this poll. Is promoting an innovative culture important to your organization?
I've shared the poll. Is promoting an innovative culture important to your organization? That sounds like yes or yes.
Yeah, it's a leading question. I'm sorry. This is so important, but rather than me telling you what you already know, I just want to really quickly bring up an example. You can see the iPhone here. Now, this is the iPhone 1. Now, if you put yourself back in time and you were thinking of launching a new mobile phone before you even knew the iPhone 1 existed, potentially you'd be looking at some of the key drivers in the phone industry at that time. So the key drivers were phones were getting smaller, they were getting cheaper, the signal strength was getting better, the battery was lasting longer. So these were some of the key metrics that companies, Motorola, Nokia, were measuring themselves on. Now, because Steve Jobs was willing to challenge all assumptions, he was willing to break the mode and look at things much more objectively, let's say, than people that are just in a reactive, market-driven state of mind. Steve Jobs was all about being market-driving rather than driven. And just look at it. The iPhone broke every single assumption in that marketplace at the time. You know, was it small? No, it was huge. Did it have a great battery life? No, it was dreadful. It wouldn't even last the day. So it must have been cheap. No, it was the most expensive phone on the market. So the signal strength must have been great. Well, it wasn't, not even up until, I think, version 4 of the iPhone, where you couldn't hold it in a certain way. So Steve Jobs was willing to break all of those assumptions. And this is where you need process and strategy behind your thinking to allow you to do that. And this all starts here. It's checking the map before the journey. And again, it's one of the raison d'etres for AOA. It was capture your thoughts, share your thoughts with others, build them in a very clear way, build the map first before you even start on the journey. I'm going to miss the, I mean, I had an example here for SWOT analysis, but I'm concerned we're running low on time, so I'm going to skip that one. But what I'd like to finish with is that you can get started for free with AOA. You don't need to buy it. You can literally start mapping out some of your ideas. Love you to have fun with it. But what I would recommend, and well, there's two things here. Sorry, I wanted to get this across. We've got another part of our organization which runs live workshops. And we've got our next live workshop on Thursday, the 9th of July. We've got a very special offer for everyone that's watching this webinar, and which the Right Selection team will share with you afterwards. The key point here is that you have to use the Right Selection link. So it'd be www.opengenius.com/right selection. And there's a 20% off Creative 20 coupon code, which is valid until the 1st of July. But I think I would hope that most of you, after watching today, would really want to jump in with AOA. Right Selection is going to be our official partner in the Middle East and in India. We're really excited to be doing this with Gotham. It's India, interestingly, even though we don't do any marketing ourselves in India, is one of our most active areas. And again, it's completely free. But if you sign up to AOA today, what I would recommend is that you use this link. Let me just zoom in on this so you can see it a bit clearer. It's www.aoa.com/right selection, because if you decide after a day, 6 months, 1 year that you want to upgrade to the free version, you can use the Creative 20 discount code to actually get a discount. But bear in mind, the discount is only until the 1st of July 2020. But effectively, you can use the free version for as long as you want, but you have to go in on this link when you sign up to be able to use that Creative 20 code if you decide to buy the full version. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Webinars are always strange because you can't see the audience, but it's been a pleasure sharing some of these concepts with you. And thank you again, Gotham.
Been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Chris. So we've got quite a few questions. I mean, from what you shared today, I must say I've got to press pause in my life because I've been trying to do the right things very quickly. For one, which my team who's on the webinar will be saying that's music to their ears. And I'm also guilty for taking time to find things. So that was really, I think, we're using a variety of different tools. So it'll be refreshing that I can now, actually I identified probably 3 different tools I'm using, and now I can basically use Iowa, not only to consolidate everything in one location, which itself simplifies searching and saving of time. So I'm really excited by what I've seen today, and I know this is just the beginning.
Absolutely.
And in fact, I think the links were shared there, but just for clarity, for those who want to download the link, it's absolutely free. They can download it today and use it on their laptops, use it on their... So are you saying that same link is to access the free version initially anyway?
Absolutely. And
just to make that clear.
Yeah, the key point is that definitely go through the right selection link, because only if you go through the right selection link will you be able to use the offer code if you want to, but you don't have to use the offer code. So if you just sign up with us directly, you won't be able to then use the offer code afterwards. So look, we're not forcing anyone to buy anything. As I said, 95% of what I've shown today, you can do for free. It just limits you to the number of mind maps and task boards that you can actually have open at one time.
Great. Just to summarize that, we invite each and every one of you, if you found value in what Chris has shared, click on the link that's shared in the chat box, download the app completely free, use the password. If at a future date in the coming month or so, obviously the link is there to upgrade to a paid version. So that's great. Thank you very much, Chris. We do have maybe 10 to 15 minutes. We'll try and answer. There are a few questions there.
Sure.
The first one is by Nagarajan. This is from Dubai. Chris, do you have any popular books already made with such mind mapping using Iowa that one could subscribe or invest in? Is there something available that you could recommend?
Okay, in terms of books relating to AOA, we don't have any books relating to AOA. Mind mapping books, Tony Bazan is obviously the most preeminent author. Am I allowed to promote my own book that I did with Tony?
Please do, because that's something very recent as well. So.
Tony and I wrote a book called Mind Maps for Business, and it's a very practical mind mapping book. But obviously, Tony Bazan's books are the best books you can possibly buy for mind mapping. Naga, I think one of the best books I've ever read when it comes to creativity, innovation, and business is actually a children's book. And I highly recommend that everyone reads The Little Prince. The Little Prince is the best-selling book ever written in France. Sells millions of copies every year, even though it's been around for a long time. So if everyone gets the chance to read The Little Prince, make a big difference to the way you think.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. The next question is from Brigadier Sushil Basin. I use Mural for mind mapping, also Miro. Which ones do you recommend, or can I have a list of the tools you recommend?
Well, I'd be doing my own team a bit of a disservice if I started recommending other software tools. I'm always going to recommend AOA, but the point is there are a lot of tools out there that are now helping people to think visually, and that's really important. So whilst they might be our competitors, they're on the same journey as us to try and change the way that people think and work. But AOA is something that we feel very proud of, and we suggest you try.
Absolutely. The next question, if we have PowerPoint presentations, can we print them and hand it over beforehand if required? But with Iowa, how do we make that possible? This is from Somu.
It's a really good question. And interestingly, just before we did the talk, what I did was, see if I've got it. What I did was to export the presentation that I did with Gotham here. Let me see if I can find it.
In fact, whilst you're searching for that, I think the next question could also be answered in the same sharing. It's from Tarun. It says, does this tool enable other formats such as spreadsheets or videos to integrate with text?
What we do in terms of with AOA, it's only 1 year old. So it was launched in June last year. So it's still a very, very new tool. I'm going to talk while I look. So the way that we do that is by using links. So you can, as you saw with me using that map as a roadmap, you can attach documents, you can link to live documents. So quite often in our organization, we link to Google Docs, or we link to Microsoft 365 sort of docs. So you can do it in different ways. We're not going to reinvent spreadsheets in AOA, and we're not going to reinvent a lot of the tools that people would already use. But one of the things that we do see on our future roadmap is the ability to embed videos in branches. At the moment, you can create a link to a video and it will play the video fine, but I'm sure that's what people are thinking. Can I actually embed the video in the branch, which at this moment in time, unfortunately, you can't.
But lots of exciting updates. I was noticing that it's now available in multiple languages. And again, someone on the group is asking about, can Zoom or WebEx work? I believe Zoom is now also...
That's a really good question. And I shouldn't really be saying this in a live webinar. But we're working on our Zoom integration at the moment. So the Zoom integration is quite an exciting area for us. What you'll be able to do is actually launch a Zoom window within a task board or within a mind map. So phenomenal. It's going to be so powerful. And we're looking at other video conferencing tools that we can link into with that, including our own. We're creating a live share feature, which again, an example would be if there was a group of 4 of us and one person was the facilitator, we can have the Zoom screen open and the facilitator can live share the map, which means that literally he or she can take control of the map and you will see what they see. But the difference is, because lots of tools do that, you can do it with screen sharing, but the difference is the tool is still active. So you can still be capturing your ideas, even though the facilitator is still moving the map around for you. You literally just click a switch and say, pause it a minute, I want to add some of my own ideas to this map. And then you go back into the live share and you go straight back to where the presenter is talking. I've got an example of the PDF. Let me just share my screen again. So here you'll see, this is what I sent over to the Right Selection team this morning. This is a PDF of the presentation. So again, with AOA, it's all about having everything in one place and then being able to do something with that information. So obviously, if you have a very, very large map, printing doesn't really make a lot of sense. You're better off keeping it in AOA and actually just focusing in on the areas that you want at the time. But I thought that would give you an example of what it would look like if you actually export it as a PDF.
That's absolutely fantastic, Chris. In fact, the gentleman who asked that earlier question about the other platforms has said, I've already downloaded Iowa as we speak, and my question is null and void. I'm already an Iowa fan. So,
hey, that's what we like to hear. That's fantastic.
That's great. The gentleman's asking just a couple questions before we wrap up for today. How does Iowa help in design thinking?
We're actually working with the design thinking organization, and a big part of AOA, which it's not live yet. We're working on it. It should be live in the next quarter, is the ability to create and share templates. I'm a big fan of design thinking. Any process that puts strategy behind your thinking is a great thing, and design thinking is one of the best. what we're looking at doing is allowing organizations like DTA to create templates based on design thinking methodologies, and then share that with people that want to actually use those methodologies. So rather than starting from a fresh mind map, you can actually start with a sort of a pre-populated map that asks you the right questions and helps you build the map that you want, and then turn that into action. So but I think it's not just design thinking, but you'll see over the next year that AOA is being used by a lot of what we would consider the most respected sort of consultants, experts, authors. As I started the conversation, cognitive flexibility is one of the most important skills that we've got. AOA allows people to set up their process in the way that they want to work, because it's very flexible. But it does take some investment into time, because you have so much flexibility. You have to think about the process that you want. So one of the things that we want to do is work with a lot of the experts around the world to implement their methodologies in AOA, so that we can all get started. As soon as we read one of their books or see one of their webinars and think, yeah, I love that sort of thinking, we can start capturing ideas, concepts, thoughts, actions straight away.
That's great. There are actually 3 questions, but I'm able to fortunately wrap it up into one as a closing question. Basically, we have individuals, we have SMEs, and we have corporates who are obviously attending this webinar. I believe they'll have different journeys with IOA. An individual, from what I understand, can download the app and obviously utilize that for his personal and professional career. SMEs and corporates, corporate gentlemen asking, what kind of engagement can one have with IOA, or with training or coaching or consultancy in that space? So I know it's an extended question, but considering we have these 3 types of profile, maybe you could shed light on what would be the next step after they've enjoyed the product in the coming month.
I mean, that's a perfect question to end on. And, you'd almost think, could you plant that question before I finish talking? One of the things that makes Open Genius very different to most technology companies is when we say we're more than technology, we really are. So when you go to opengenius.com, you'll see that we have a network of consultants and trainers around the world. So we don't get caught up in the technology. The technology is just a facilitator. I'm so lucky to have worked with thousands of consultants, trainers, and coaches. I actually set up a network of over 1,000 mind mapping trainers in the last decade. And now we have a network of innovation consultants. So yes, AOA can work with organizations of different sizes in different ways. So if all you're interested in is in the technology, whether you're an individual, an SME, or a corporate, that's fine. If you're just interested in the technology, you can get licenses to your team. AOA, when you use it with your team, comes into its own. But obviously, any type of technology that you implement in an organization is always going to be better utilized if you have coaching and mentoring on an ongoing basis to actually help your team get the most out of it. And I'm not talking about just technically how you use it. Anyone can figure out how to use AOA by going onto YouTube or using the help files. But we work with highly skilled and trained coaches throughout the world. So we can work with organizations in so many different ways, Gotham.
That's great. Just to make clarity, there are actually 2 trainers and consultants on the call. What would the trainer's role be? I mean, we have a trainer from Qatar who's already, I think, one of your consultants, and one from Dubai. But those in India are interested. What would the role or interest be? How would that work?
It really depends on what the client wants. Okay. I mean, the beauty with AO is you can use it for pretty much any thinking task, and you can also use it for actions. So some people will want to use AOA from a HR perspective, perhaps to help coach individuals within the organization. Others may want to use it from very much an implementation. So actually using it very much as a task manager and a task board where they can capture ideas. So what we always try and do is find out why people are interested in using AOA. What's the driver? No one wants to use technology for technology's sake. So there's obviously a reason why they're considering it. Is it because the organization needs to be more creative? Is it because individuals within the organization need to be coached and managed in a different way, and AOA facilitates that very, very well. So we have coaches that are skilled in different areas, from technical through to HR to coaching. So it really depends on what the pain point for the client is trying to solve.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Chris. I think we could go on and on. There's something about when I see colors, images on the screen, and the creative mindset, I lose track of time myself. I mean, it's been absolutely inspiring listening to you. I'm looking forward to using Iowa even more so now, and sharing it, throughout the Gulf and the Indian subcontinent. I couldn't think of a better time globally. I mean, where working from home has only, to me, expedited the need to solve that as a pain, and this becomes a great solution to that. Creativity, innovation, and productivity are needed now more than ever before in history, in my opinion. And on behalf of Right Selection and all of those attending today, a big thank you to you for your valuable time and for inspiring each one of us to move positively forward and engage with Iowa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Gotham. Thank you, the whole Right Selection team.
Yeah, thank you. We'll just wrap up. I mean, obviously, we have a link shared on LinkedIn on the chat box. If you could share your takeaway on the LinkedIn post, that would be great. A reminder that you have a great opportunity to just simply click on the link and start enjoying and benefiting from the IO app, completely free. Do enjoy that and share your feedback online with us. If there's any way we can co-create and collaborate, it'll be our absolute pleasure. And if you'd like to reach out to the Iowa team or ourselves, just drop us an email. It'll be our pleasure to share more details with you on that as I share that throughout the Gulf and India. I'll wrap up with the slide, but on behalf of Chris, thank you very much once again. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise, thank you.
Thank you. So just wrapping up here, where we have our next webinar with Jack Canfield coming up this Saturday. Welcome to attend that with your families, your teams. He's one of the greatest speakers I've attended, obviously Chicken Soup for the Soul, but his book, Success Principles, has done phenomenally well globally, and he'll be with us for a 90-minute masterclass on Saturday, 4 p.m. India time, 2:30 p.m. UAE time. Do connect with me on LinkedIn. The link has been shared in the chat. Do send a message to me and how we connected and where you attended today's webinar. So do reach out to me on LinkedIn. Thank you. I'd like to thank our partners, influencer sites, 4P Solutions, The Word Jockey, and Kata 108. If you'd like to partner with us, do connect with us. It's always great to speak to people who'd like to co-create and collaborate. On behalf of Right Selection, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting Chris Griffiths today. We thank you for your valuable time. We look forward to seeing you at the webinar with Jack Canfield on Saturday or Sally Helgeson next Wednesday. Thank you, Chris, once again for your valuable time and inspiration. Thank you.